How do we get men connected to their hearts? It's that first heartbreak that causes the pain, that spins us into chaos, that goes, I will never do this again. I will never give my heart away again. So I'm going to build a wall around it that no one can penetrate, not even myself. Men are ready to heal. Wow. Men are ready to be seen, to be witnessed, to be heard, to be held even. Mm-hmm. For men to be held by other men. Mm-hmm. Is that possible in this world?
Welcome to Deeply Well, a soft place to land, a podcast for the curious and the creative that are ready to expand in higher consciousness and self-care. This is where you heal. This is where you become. Welcome to the show. This episode, I am just thrilled to be exploring the conversation that's going to take place today. Couple seasons ago, I was blessed with having this guest on the show, and we were specifically talking about healing for men. And this episode ended up becoming a cult classic favorite. It is the highest listened to episode in all of the shows with all of the amazing guests we've had, and the impact that it left on so many that I was able to read in the reviews and the shares and all the beautiful things that were spoken of it. It really blew me away. It really blessed me. And I'm so excited to go even deeper into this conversation that the world is finally ready for. So this episode, my special guest, I am joined by Adam Jackson. Adam Jackson holds a vision for ushering Brotherhood to the forefront of our community as a means of conscious healing. He is a co-founder, director of operations, and the voice of Sacred Sons. Adam is a true Renaissance man with his education in science, background in art and music, and ongoing exploration of love, travel, and experiential community building. Fatherhood has set Adam on a heart-opening journey of conscious parenting and commitment to living one's truth. Adam is devoted to continual inner exploration and has the intuitive ability to connect others to their path and purpose. His spiritual practices have led him to Inipi Ceremony Sweat Lodge, men's circles, plant medicine ceremonies, and transformational gatherings. He is walking his spiritual path with the power of self-love and the intention to raise the collective consciousness of our human family. Welcome back to the show, my brother, Adam Jackson.
Thank you, Devi. It is an honor to be back in your presence and to be here with your audience.
Such an honor. First and foremost, because I know you have been, along with Sacred Sons, you all have been just doing, since I've last spoken to you, so much powerful programming, so many incredible events, literally all over the globe. So first and foremost, how are you?
I'm expanding every day. And so is this movement of Sacred Sons. And, thank you for having this conversation that the world is now ready for. Because the men are ready. And that is actually what's coming through for me, is that men are ready to heal. Wow. Men are ready to be seen, to be witnessed, to be heard, to be held even. And as I'm saying that, just feel what comes up for you. Mm-hmm. For men to be held by other men. Is that possible in this world? In a world that asks men not to feel, to stuff their emotions down, to hide their stories, and to keep on moving forward. It's now time that we can move through that and come to a new space of masculine embodiment, of truth and honesty, of acceptance, and of love. I love that term, the human family. Because even as I come in here to see you, it's it's soul fam.
Yeah.
It really is.
100%.
It really is soul family. And that's another conversation the world is ready for, that we are truly connected.
Yeah.
And as men and women and stewards of this earth, it's time to own that.
God. I mean, there is so much there that you just said. And as the mother of a son who just turned 5, hi Quest, if you hear this later in life.
Quest.
As a mom of a young boy, it is just something that is at the forefront of my mind in every single second. This, I look at it as just one of the most profound opportunities that God could ever give me to be a mom to a boy at this moment in human history.
Yeah.
And give him the space to be a feeler, give him a space to be expressive in all the ways he wishes to be. And, something I love, I'll share the story with you quickly because there's just so much I want to get into. But I was sharing with a friend actually last night. My son, he's a deep feeler, as I am. We're really highly sensitive, intuitive beings. And sometimes he'll just he'll walk over and he'll just look at me and he'll give me this face of wanting to cry. And I'll say, baby, what's wrong? And he'll say, I just want to cry. And what I've started doing when I would hear that, I would just say, okay, start crying. If you want to cry, go ahead, babe. That's okay. And then he'll look at me and he'll go look in the mirror and see his face and see his feeling. And then he'll go sit down and he'll let himself cry. And I'll look over at him. I'll say, do you need me? Would you like a hug? Are you okay? And sometimes he'll say yes. And then sometimes he'll say no. And then I'll say, okay, well, just let me know when you're done. If you need me, I'm right here.
Yes.
And then he'll be at the table and he'll just cry, and I'll be in the kitchen doing something. And when he's done, he'll just stop and he'll be like, okay. And then he'll turn back into his kind of high energy self, take off running, throw his toys, do something.
Right back in it.
Right back in it. And it's been remarkable for me to witness that and to even be privileged to witness that or help create the space for that to happen.
Yes.
And I'm just in awe of that ability in him. And I think the thing that it really illustrates for me, and I want to dive into about your work, is if that is his natural need,
yes,
and I'm giving myself the openness to let him express that need without taking it personally, without trying to solve it,
right,
or without demanding that he repress it, then that is a basic need all men, all children have always had since the dawn of time.
Yes.
And
of all ages.
Of all ages. And men have never, in a large scale way, aside from maybe the few awakened and enlightened parents that have been sprinkled throughout history, but men have never been given that opportunity, and it's never been seen as just a basic human need.
Yeah. What stands out to me about that story is that you allowed your son to move through the emotion. Permission is big here. The allowance of that space for the energy to come through is what prevents it from getting stored in the body and becoming destructive. And so I was also raised by a single mom. And I have memories of of crying when she would leave, of being in my sadness around it, and also had an older brother who's like, man, quit that. Stop that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And what that does to us as humans is it creates trauma. It creates trauma that's stored in the body. And I'm not here to necessarily unpack that. There's a lot of people who do that. But what I'm here to say is, why is it important for men of all ages? Because they've never had the chance to move that energy through. And I'm talking about Sacred Sons. We have men in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, all the way. And the difference is, for your son, you can physically support him.
Yeah.
You can place a hand on his chest. You can literally pick him up and hold him if he needs it. I have 3 boys. So I know those tears, and I feel that. And I feel what it means to hold my son through that. But as an adult, in an adult body, it takes more than one person to be able to hold it. Okay, so if a brother is really going through it, whatever that is, isolation, addiction, depression, unrecognized joys and triumphs even, sometimes that takes a group of 10 men to hold.
Wow.
And that's the work we're doing at Sacred Sons. This is group work. I like to say that it's not therapy, but man, is it therapeutic. And for men, and it's no disrespect to therapy, there's great need, and it's an amazing resource for those who need that. But I find largely with men, we need to be around other men, other masculine energy, to the level that can actually hold the pain that we have, because we're not 5-year-old boys anymore.
Yes.
We're not 10-year-olds. We're not 12-year-olds. You know what I'm saying? And so what does that look like? And that's what Sacred Sons has created. We've created a template for ascension, for the ability to come into a space and transmute our pain into power, into purpose, and ultimately into mission. And we can talk more about what the greater mission is, but that's the why. I mean, like, all of us as humans require that ability to be held.
Something that always, and we had the chance to speak so deeply about the work that Sacred Sons does in our last episode. And even though it's the highest performing episode, I highly encourage anyone who hasn't heard it to
go back and listen
after
to
this.
It too.
Send it to a friend. Some of the images that you share on your social media, they absolutely rock me to my core. And I send them to so many men, whether they're men in my life or clients, because the imagery, it's a healing in and of itself. Being able to see those experiences and those emotions. And, something that's always the way that I've been viewing the work that's always looked so special to me is there's so many things happening at once. I'm observing that there is this deep transformational healing of being allowed to feel, of being able to kind of create new wiring within yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing this beauty in men being able to create so much more intimacy between each other in every facet, in every way, like the ability to just, and I love that we can say this so freely. And, in the last 2 years, our language societally has been upgraded. So, but no, this kind of stuff has never happened. Men hugging just because it feels nice to hug. And like, that's what I do with my girlfriends. Like, you know what I mean? Like, me and my girlfriends are always like hugged up on each other, doing like,
who doesn't need a good hug, though?
Sweet things for each other, looking each other in our eyes. And for men to have the opportunity to emote, to feel, to express. And it doesn't just have to be through traditional outlets like celebrating sports or, connecting over women or alcohol. Can you speak to some of that? Like the ways in which, really, let me state it like this. What are you noticing as some of those deeper needs that men have really been craving in their lives?
I'm so glad that you mentioned the imagery, because when we set out to do this work, one of the things we said is we're going to show the work. It's not going to be hidden. Rituals, rites of passage are often kept in secrecy, and there's good reason for that traditionally. But this is the time we felt that we're not going to hide. We're not going to hide the emotions of men away, because it's nothing to be in shame or guilt around. It's like we're going to broadcast the aspect of what we're doing and acknowledge that these emotions are already present. They're already there. And so what are the needs that men have? A hug. A hug would be nice. Someone caring. I think one of the things I hear so much from men is like, no one actually cares. No one actually gives a shit about me. No one actually cares about what's happening with me. And so what we do is we create a space of deep caring, of deep connection. And, it's not a secret. There's no gurus in our circles. This movement is beyond myself. It was co-founded by 3 brothers, myself included, but men have a deep desire to be seen and for their story to simply be heard, no matter what it is. And specifically what we're dealing with in the culture, and we know it's isolation, it's separation, and those things lead to, the misaligned behaviors. And so how do we get men connected to their hearts? Because a lot of men in the culture right now, a lot of people in the culture, we're all up here in our heads. We've learned that way in school. We're thinking for hours and hours a day. Yes. Up here, we're sitting down, our bodies are static. And so what we are doing is relational and physical training. We're getting men back into their bodies. We're getting men out of their stories, out of their comfort zone, into confrontation even, which can be very challenging. But ultimately, it's to make that journey from head to heart, to get these men back into their hearts. And why is that important for the world? Because a lot of the decisions that are being made by men are impacting this planet. They're impacting the environment. They're impacting our brothers and sisters. And so when men are connected to their hearts and they're making decisions from that place, what does that world look like?
Wow. 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 It's so interesting. I think something very gratefully we're dismantling from our psyches as beings, as a species, is it's really this understanding of all the containers that have been created to control us, which includes these roles that we've quote unquote supposed to play societally, right? And so it's been really striking for me to look at kind of the makeup of the masculine over time and see how, there is this expectation, one, that they have everything under control at all times, that they have everything figured out, that they're the leaders of the household, very often the provider of the household, the backbone of the household in many ways. And yet leading up to becoming an adult male in terms as a species, have been given no actual tools to invoke what it takes to lead, what to awaken the heart in a way that you can lead from the soul. Men are denied access to the soul.
Yes.
When did you first start to really first embody this understanding for yourself and then create this philosophy in service to others?
The truth is, it was present when I was a child. Specifically, I remember a first grade play. I was invited by my teacher, Miss Coleman, to play Dr. Martin Luther King in our little play. And I read I said a piece of the "I Had a Dream" speech. This deeply impacted me as a young man.
Yeah.
To hear those words, to judge people based on the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. All these things, as a mixed race person growing up, I've always felt like love for all people because I'm actually embodied in what everyone else experiences as division. I'm embodied in my own union. My father is Black, my mother is white. They had my sister in 1969. Okay, it's like, that's where I'm coming from, and it was true for me since I was a child. But what happened is I went through the pain of like not having my father close, the pain of like my mom's at work all day, nobody's home to cook or to take care of us. And I'm saying this with all love and reverence for both of my parents, who I love dearly, obviously. And that kind of stuff, it starts to build up the walls. And then for a lot of young men, and what I experience in our circles, it's that first heartbreak. It's that first heartbreak that causes the pain, that spins us into chaos, that goes, I will never do this again. I will never give my heart away again. So I'm going to build a wall around it that no one can penetrate, not even myself. And so that happened to me too. And we go through that. And I went through that with zero guidance, with zero tools. And just into sports, into school, and then into trouble, and the things that I could get away with. And why I'm saying that is, I believe that we all have that innocence that we had as children, that inner essence. I can imagine you felt that somewhere deep in your little girl, like she was always there. That essence of who you are, Devi, it was always there. And so what we do is we put all this stuff on top of it.
Yes.
Based on our life experience. And so the process becomes one of undoing. This is not one of like, oh, I got to find myself. I got to find my soul's purpose. Man, my soul came here on mission knowing. I got to remember.
Yes.
And this is a time of remembrance. As much as it's a time to connect, we as individuals each have to remember that inner essence and connect to it. And so where it came back into my life was, again, after breakup. It was after a really hard breakup. We had a business, we had the house and all the things, and then it's gone. And then it's like, who am I now? And so it's these moments that men come into Sacred Sons, the moments of chaos, of pain, of not knowing, of fear of the unknown. That's the starting point for inner work. And again, the inner work is only to excavate the gold that's already there. That blue flame, that the eternal flame that's already lit into the fire of our soul.
Yes.
We're all we want to do is to come into contact with that once again. It's not to create anything that's not real.
Yes. It's funny when you said, thinking of like my inner little one, my little girl, and where I was, I think, and we talked about this a little bit, I think last time we talked, what I'm kind of having the experience of in my life right now as a teacher is like, people are like, well, how did you become this way? Or what book did you read? And I'm like, sure, I've read some books over time, but this has inherently been me. It's inherently been my sensitivity, my understanding of what I'm here to give.
Yeah.
And I think up until recently for those, and I know a lot listening connect with this as well. It's been waiting for the world to catch up.
Big time.
It's been waiting for certain paradigm shifts to happen so our collective consciousness can rise, which is something I'm really excited about in this moment in time, because there's a lot to do on this planet. Make no mistake. But the language, there is now a baseline of understanding that has really risen us thousands of years in our consciousness, and to even understanding universally that, hey, we all feel things inside. At a bare minimum, even that alone had been denied up until collectively like 5 years ago,
Yeah.
So it feels it's just such an enlivened time. Something I'm really curious about, Adam, being on the forefront of men's healing and being on the forefront of men's emotional health, especially, what are our households needing the most right now?
Fathers, the presence of aligned men. And we talk about misalignments a lot in the work. And I just want to say here, it's not to be aligned to an ideology or some like 10 rules of what it means to be a man. It's to be aligned again with that inner essence, with the true knowing of who we are. And so what is missing broadly is fathers. And it doesn't mean like a father that, is that even had the child, but the essence, the archetype of the father within men. A lot of men are running around here as boys, as princes, calling themselves kings.
Wow.
We don't need any more kings out here.
Okay.
We need fathers.
Talk about it.
We need fathers. Straight up.
Yes.
A lot of men, it gets put into the warrior, the father, the king, the magician. It's like there's a place for that. But please, can we just bring the presence of the Father to our children, to our beloveds? And not only that, it's like to treat all children as if they were our own.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
Because that's who we are as humans. I don't know why this is coming through, but when George Floyd died, the first thing I thought was like, he's a father. And the identity politics of the day made it this racial thing. I'm like, why are we not talking about the fact that this man has children? And that for me is like, that's what's real. That's where we can connect, because in all of the men I see, especially when I work with fathers, I work with a lot of dads. That's kind of become my leading passion in the men's work, as I am a father. And what I know is that fathers love their children universally. Whether they have the words or the opportunity to express it in our spaces, we hear it, and we hear all of it. We hear the deep longing for the fathers that are kept away from their children. Even that's a part of our culture now in America too. People separate, and we understand why people separate. But man, to have it be encouraged to like keep pushing men away from their children, I think this is a disastrous path. I think the nuclear family model is imploding on itself. Yeah. And so we're coming back into a sense of village. It's not the village of old. We are also utilizing technology. But I was sharing with you, like, my sons, they have uncles in the form of all these Sacred Sons leaders and of my actual friends, my brothers, who get to show up for my kids because it's not always going to be coming from me.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's important to understand, like, it's the father archetype.
Yes.
It's so that, like, when my son interacts with one of my brothers, one of my friends, that they're bringing that masculine energy in a positive way to the children.
Yeah.
Because men provide, that's, we all know this. Men provide, and I think that gets taken for granted, but what we actually provide on an energetic level beyond finances and giving a home and a roof and food is a deep sense of safety. And when women and children feel safe, like, again, that's the world I want to be in.
Yes. Yes. I mean, in so many ways that does so much, but just in terms of thinking of the household, like who that allows a woman to be with her partner when she is feeling fully safe, the kind of mother it gives her the space to be.
Yes.
In a household like that, where you feel that there is, I think, this deeper intention from both the father and the mother to lead with the soul, to lead with the heart in service to the rearing of the child and the work meant to be done in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the reality is no mother and father can really hold it all for a child. That's where the village comes in.
Yeah.
And in order for all of this to kind of unfold, we have to start coming back into connection. The pandemic is over. We got to get out from behind the screens, and also we got to come away from like the 70,000 person festivals too. I think that's also creating more isolation in many ways. But it's like these small, intimate group gatherings. It's really fulfilling.
Yes.
It's a really fulfilling thing to take the time to get connected to yourself and to others.
Yes.
And I believe as we move forward, this will become more and more valuable and more sought after, more highly sought after, and seen as, seen as what's needed. We have everything in this culture. We have the access that just 100, 200 years ago, the richest, most powerful people didn't have the access that common people have today.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
And what has that really done for us, as a society?
Yeah.
Has it made us more selfish, more narcissistic, potentially, more isolated? That's what I'm experiencing, and that's what I'm seeing. And so, again, this invitation is like, we have to bring the essence of what a real man is. And that's not up for me to even say. Like, I get to invite in every single man and brother that I interact with and say, hey, how do you show up this way? And a lot of times it looks like play. It looks like presence. It looks like listening. It's not the things we were sold. It's not about how much money you make, how much bling you're rocking these days. It's how much presence can you bring?
God, that's exquisitely said. That is so beautiful. When you were speaking a moment ago to the archetype of the father, I felt really called to ask, and I hope the way it's intended inside is coming out in service to who's listening, because speaking of household, there are some dynamics that just are right now. We're in an evolutionary time. So even though these are our ideals, these are the things that we are moving forward and recognizing deeply need, sometimes they take decades and centuries and millennia to actually unfold in the human on the planet. So there are a lot of mothers raising boys by themselves or raising boys with someone who may be physically present, but maybe is not mentally or emotionally present. And, you spoke to, especially two parents not being able to hold all that is necessary to bring a being into themselves. But if you're a single parent and a single mother, especially, so for any that are listening right now that find themselves in that position, what are ways that are possible to invoke the archetype of the father? Or what are some ways to create community for the young boy in their life, the children in their life, the girls in their lives. Like how can a parent bring this consciousness into their household even without having the additional help?
That's such a great question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I know it's a tall order, and it just, there is so much to be unpacked. So, but I know that is present for so many women that want more for themselves, that want more for their children. You also sometimes just can't help what the present moment reality is.
Yeah. And that's precisely why we created our youth program, Sons Youth, which is a 1-to-1 model. We scholarship half of the kids who come through it.
Wow.
We have a youth mentor training, which the men in our community participate in order to be able to lead the youth. And I think that's what we need more of. We need more men, because we have the capacity and we have this sense of purpose when we get into this work.
Yeah.
We have to get more men into the mindset that this is valuable. That to be the thing that you didn't have when you were growing up.
Yeah. And so, not buying the things, not the video games you didn't have, because I think so many parents get into that. Like, I want them to have these things. And it's like, but what is their heart made of?
Yeah. And so I think it ultimately comes down to the relationships. The technology is never going to fill the void. In fact, it's going to drive the isolation deeper. So I also don't believe it behooves mothers to be more in their masculine when they're having to hold multiple roles. I think it's find, I don't want to say find a program, but I do believe there are more and more of these camps, these emotional intelligence courses, and these ways to get our youth in connection.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what it's like to be, like a 15-year-old right now. With all the access, with the technology, with having to keep up with the friends. And it's there's a party going on your phone 24/7 for us as adults too. And then we become incessant in checking in on that party. What's needed is reality. What's needed is that connection. So I would say to that mom who's home, just bring the presence. Just ask how they're doing. Just have an honest conversation. That's the place to start, instead of feeding into the more of the distraction. That would be my sole advice in that situation. And there are so many people on this planet who are wanting to help, who are willing to help. And we're finding the others, and we're growing. And it's the next iteration of this is conscious Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
This is raising these young men with mentorship and with guidance. So hopefully they can avoid some of those pitfalls. And no doubt they'll have to go through their own heartbreak, but they'll have support when they do it.
Yeah.
And ultimately what we hope and what we strive for is that it doesn't lead into deeper misalignments, which we're seeing play out in society right now. I think the sense of urgency is known by all, but this solution is just now breaking ground. It's just now emerging through the surface, where people are going, oh, really? It's that simple? We just got to get people connected with other like-hearted individuals.
Yeah.
And really, and actually support each other. This is the way.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen in a pill. You know what I'm saying? There's no magic pill for it. It's actual human connection. And so we have to continue to value that ourselves as adults, and to cultivate community. And I like to say too, if we utilize the technology right now, it's the easiest and most kind of abundant time to get connected, to find your tribe, to find your community, or to build one.
Yeah. Build one. Yeah.
And that's literally what I set out to do back in 2018. And it's happening. We started doing these men's circles and calling men in San Diego, California, and they would trickle in. We had our first Convergence. We were praying for 30 men to show up. 75 showed up.
Wow.
And from there, we were like, oh, this is important. People are actually asking for this. People really want to belong these days.
Yes.
And so if you're someone who feels called to building community, what are you waiting for?
Thank you for saying that, because I think even the question that I pose, it's just so complex. It's layered and it's not one answer and there's not a definable solution to all of it, but the community aspect.
And I want to say this too, because I witnessed it in the Sons program. People, and it's not to shame anyone, but we are over medicating these children. And we are deepening them into the trauma that their parents have suppressed.
Yeah.
And so again, what I would say to that single mother or father who's out there, find a space for you to do your inner work, for you to do the deep work, to get yourself back into alignment so that you can really show up in full presence for your children and for your community.
And whoever's listening to this, I know there's some ears that are really peaked right now, and I know you're tired. I know you're tired. I know. And I know the idea of doing something else that's also going to require mental and emotional labor, it feels overwhelming. And I would just say to that, tap into something higher to give you the energy and the fuel that you need, because this is why you're here. This is what life is about. It is not about earning and striving. It is about what you are pouring in to your children, what you are pouring into yourself. There is nothing more important. As heavy as that load feels, as impossible as it seems to find these pockets of time to do this work, please call it out to the universe. Call it out to what you call that higher power. I call it God. Set an intention. Miracles unfold. And even if that doesn't feel real as you hear the sound of my voice in this moment, I can guarantee it. So just set an intention, do your best, whatever's possible for you.
Do your best. We are all out here doing our best. And so we also have to give ourselves that kind of acceptance of the situation we're in. I like this Frederick Douglass quote, which is, it's easier to raise strong boys than to repair broken men.
Ooh.
And so if you are looking for a why to give your son or your daughter or the children of this planet that support now, it's so that we don't have to spend a whole nother generation after generation in that undoing. And there is no technology. And again, I want to say it, there's no magic bullet or magic pill that's going to do it for us. We actually have to come into contact. Yeah. We actually have to begin relating with one another in the realest of real ways. And when we do that, we find that our vulnerability is actually the strength that we all get to, it's not like feed off of, but we all get to dance in that vulnerability because it touches us. It touches us, but it actually makes us more human to feel deeply our emotions versus to suppress them.
Yeah.
And that's really what I'm here for. We're in a time where everybody can't stop talking about AI. Why? Like, I'm here to talk about being human.
Yeah.
We are the highest form of intelligence on this planet. Your body is the highest form of intelligence on this planet. There's nothing you're going to find in an artificial intelligence that is beyond the power and magnitude of your soul. So stop looking there and start looking inside. That's my invitation. And that is the work for myself too.
Yeah.
And so when I get into it, and no one is perfect, this is not about perfection. This is not, we are sacred sons and you're not. The reason why we called it Sacred Sons is because we are acknowledging that we are all sons of the Most High God. We are all children of this earth, and that life is sacred. And so if you are a man on this planet that doesn't believe that about yourself, come connect.
Yeah.
And you don't have the finances, because that's a part of this too. We have a robust scholarship program. We're like, This is the new paradigm. We get to create what that new business model looks like. We're not on some infinite corporate growth model. We're on a mission to touch the lives of the most people that we can in a positive way, and to let those ripples ripple into their lives and into their communities. And that's largely what I'm seeing. And I wanted to say this to you too, Devi, we have police officers that are Reiki masters.
Wow.
We have had a sheriff come to Sacred Sons who's a breathwork facilitator. That's what time it is in 2023.
Wow.
And so in particular, there's a British police officer, shout out to Mac McLean. Shout out, Mac. He is leading the entire unit in breath work before they go out for their days now. This is actually happening. This is a Sacred Son in the world who's bringing this. And so that's happening over there in England.
Wow.
Right? And meanwhile, I have my brother Tamir. I got my brother Tamir in Israel. He came through Sacred Sons. It's been a year and a half. And he is doing men's circles within Israel, in Tel Aviv, inviting in Israelis and Palestinian men.
What?
This work, it's like, that's what I'm saying about too, the broadcast. This is not something to keep secret and in the dark.
Yeah.
This is something that can prevent war, in my opinion.
Talk about it.
This is something that can bring us back to like an inner peace. Ring the bell on it.
Wow.
Ring the bell on it because that's where it's going. And so, I mentioned George Floyd earlier randomly because it popped in my mind. But now I want to say this. When we have embodied peacekeepers in this world who are out there and who are using the energy, the strength, their capacity to bring good into this world, the goodness that exists deep down.
Mm-hmm.
There's a goodness in us when we really check in. And so when we get to cultivate and bring more of that into the world through men, I believe this is what I believe changes the game.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I mean.
And I want to give you another story.
Give me the stories.
This one's present for me. I just got off of a call with a brother, and he was sharing with me. This is a very different path, but it's real. He's asking about testosterone. Oh man, I got low testosterone. I'm taking all this stuff. It's messing up my hormones. I'm not sleeping at night. I got all this stuff, and I'm 42 years old, so I see all this stuff about supplements, and this is what you got to do to stay young, and all this stuff, right? And people are believing it, but it's not working. You could take all the supplements, all the testosterone you want. If you are not creating a life of embodied truth, none of it matters. So I asked him, all right, forget the supplements. What's beneath that? What's beneath it? And he's like, well, I'm lying to my wife. I'm like, well, okay, let's talk about why you're not sleeping at night. It has nothing to do with, again, a pill that you're going to take from the outside in. This life is an inside out game. And so for my brothers that got low T, I want to invite into another T. And that is called capital T, truth. Until you come into honesty in your life, you will always be looking for something outside of yourself to fill that void. I know this from my own personal experience. Honesty, we call this honest masculinity. Above all else, honesty is the starting point for all of us as men and women. That is our point A. And so for anyone who is trying to fill that void, come back into honesty and get real with yourself. When I'm saying honesty, it doesn't mean you have to divulge everything about your life to the people who are closest to you. The first person to get honest with.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so that little nudge that I gave this brother, and he shared with me, he's telling all these little lies that add up to big lies. And I'm like, let's focus on that. And can I get some accountability from you that at the very least, if you tell a little lie, call me and be honest about it. We're going to take baby steps into honesty.
Wow.
Because some people have been lying to themselves for so long that they don't even know they're doing it.
Yeah.
Okay. And so like we tell these little lies that end up becoming big lies. And I'm just saying, if you want something that will radically change your life, it's capital T, truth. Start being honest.
That is so massively powerful. And the thing about lying is there is no such thing as a little lie.
Right.
A lie is a lie.
Right.
And a lie speaks to your point, the disharmony in oneself.
Yes.
And pathological lying, it's rooted in childhood. It's rooted in fear.
Yeah.
It's rooted in an avoidance of being who you are. That is just so incredibly powerful. Speaking to him, and I'm so curious because I know the men that go through your programs are just, changed from the inside out forever, right? It's like kind of like when you ride a bike, you'll never forget once you've glimpsed your soul. You'll never forget once you have found that pathway of access. Now, sometimes we take breaks or sometimes we don't act on all the changes in real time, but once the pathway is built, it's always there. I'm so curious, what are some of the experiences that men are sharing with you, that the ways that their lives are changing, the ways that they relate to the people they're in partnership with, if that is in relationship or with their children or with their own mothers, with the people they work with? How are they taking this into their lives and what are they seeing unfold?
Yeah. I would say what comes up first for me is I've had so many men tell me that this work has changed, that this work has literally saved their life.
Yeah.
So that would be one. That would be to start. The fact that these men are still here. And to be real, there was a man recently who came to an event last October. 6 months later, he took his own life. So let me talk about that. There's a lot of success stories. There's a lot of people who have integrated this work into their life, but I want to talk about this brother Andre, who left behind a wife and a child. And it saddens me that we're at this point, at this place where men feel that they have no other alternative than to not be here. And so that's what I want to talk about. There's been marriages saved. There have been men who were kept away from their children for years, who now have consistent relationships with their children.
Wow.
Like for that to happen, for me to be a witness to that is so profound. But there are so many brothers suffering in silence because they think they're alone in it. Yeah. They think it's just them and that somehow that they failed.
Yeah.
And it's not true. It's not true.
God, that feeling of failure, the way it, especially as a male, the way it can dominate you, the way that it can just keep you in a cycle of avoidance of self for your entire lifetime.
Yeah. And that idea again, that like no one cares.
Yeah.
No one would really understand. No one could relate to my story because I've messed up that bad.
Yeah.
Is probably what a lot of people are feeling. And I believe that we get an opportunity to flip the script on that story because we do care. We deeply care. And so what are the stories of men who are coming through the work? Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
Like you said.
Yeah. And
so there are expansions and contractions. That's just the reality of any big bang experience, of any transformational experience, any ceremony you've been to. You can have a semblance of what it means to be close to God. But ultimately, we are here on this earth to be human. And so what happens is men get really big. I'm going to do all the things. I'm going to lose the weight. I'm going to change my life. I'm going to get the new job, whatever it is that they're committed to. And ultimately, there's a contraction that happens. And so I like to be very real about it. This is a path of expansion and contraction.
Yeah. Oh,
you take 2 steps forward, you take 1 step back. And because I don't want to give the illusion that it's like one weekend will change your life forever. It will. It will inform your life forever.
Yes.
But the change is up to you. And the change happens in the choices that you make every single day.
Yeah.
Awareness and choice. Awareness and choice. With this awareness, what will I choose? That is what we are bringing men to the reality of.
Yes.
Now that you have this awareness, what will you choose? And we're doing work with veterans. I mentioned police officers as brothers who are leading in now and who have participated in Sacred Sons. We're doing veteran-specific work as well. And we are losing 44 men and women a day to suicide who have come out of the military. Wow. Again, we get the opportunity to bring to these folks, like, 1, Here's a place to talk about it.
Yeah.
Here's a place to really get it out. And then once we kind of exhaust it, now let's do the work to build you back up.
Yeah.
And with all of us, it's just one step at a time.
Yes.
Truly.
Yes. I'm just so glad that you said that, especially, because that's what the journey is for all of us, for myself included. It's
Absolutely.
like you have these big breakthroughs, these shifts in awareness, these timelines, these new ascended areas that you're headed with yourself. And then you take a step back. It's like you meet the sun and then you get a little shadow. Then you greet the sun, you get a little shadow. But it's why we're here. We're oscillating between those polarities. That's what it is to exist. But it's about the higher choice in real time.
Yes. And what these men are also walking away with, which I haven't really touched on, is a bunch of new friends.
Yeah.
It's really important. Friendship is like one of the most powerful gifts we get to give to one another. And we call it brotherhood, and it is. But it's brotherhood as a verb. It's brotherhood in action. It's like, what does it mean to show up as a brother for someone? Not that I belong to a brotherhood, but like this brotherhood in action is really powerful.
Yeah.
Because when the contraction comes, and it will, who do you have to call?
Yeah.
It's one of the things I say at the end of our weekends. If there's anything you could take away from this weekend of all the amazing things you have seen and felt, it would be one friend, one brother who, when things get real, you could pick up the phone and they'll pick up on the other line. And I just ask, how many of you men are willing to pick up the phone if a brother here calls? Every single hand goes up. You know why? Because men are providers. Because men are providers of that safety at our core. And we are willing to do it. All we need to be given is the permission. Sacred Sons is here to give men that permission.
That is so beautiful. I have a question for you, Adam. I think from the viewpoint of a lot of women who are in relationship with men, and whether that is romantic relationship or family members, parents, I think universally, especially because kind of historically men haven't had access to as much emotional language or depth or the ability to share it, there is this kind of overarching assumption with women that men don't care, or that they are unwilling to quote unquote do the work. They don't want to do it. Why won't you just do the work? Right? Like I hear that a lot in a lot of spaces.
Yes.
And, I think something that we're all coming to understand, but definitely you've unpacked on this show, is that's absolutely not the case. Men are longing for it, right? But how can a woman be more present for any masculine in her life that she may not be understanding how to relate to? But if possible, and again, I'm not putting the weight of responsibility on anyone, but if you're listening and this is a desire for you, are there some ways to invoke those conversations that doesn't immediately turn into a defensiveness on both sides?
I've been there myself. You know what I'm saying?
I'm like, how do I articulate this in the best way? But we want answers.
Is there a way? Of course. Of course. And I believe there's real benefit to men doing work with other men and women doing work in groups of women.
Yeah.
I think this is a human quality that we have, again, placed on like the nuclear family model. You gotta keep it all together inside. And so a lot of men become defensive because, let's just say, in the example I gave earlier, because they don't want to be caught in their own story or their own lie. And the reason why people lie is because they think that they're keeping someone safe by not revealing the lie. But what's actually happening is you're endangering someone.
Yes.
Because they don't know the truth. And so the defense mechanism may be there for that reason, but it also may be there because it's like, hey, you're the person I'm closest to, being extremely vulnerable with you in this moment without, like I'm saying, the support of a group to literally hold you. Some of this stuff men are divulging for the first time, maybe ever, whether that's in the form of relationship, of something that happened in their childhood, of abuse in their childhood. Men are trembling when this stuff comes out. And you've seen it. You've seen kind of from the photos and videos.
Yeah.
And so how could I expect that man's partner to hold all that? That's just the reality. That's the reality. And so how can a partner to a man really support him? Deep listening without criticism. Criticism for sure is the relationship killer. Once it becomes like, once something is revealed and then immediately it gets some amount of guilt, fear, shame, criticism put on top of it, we shut down further. We go deeper into the, oh, it's not safe out here.
Yeah.
And, you know, I would highly encourage those in relationship, you know, to include the village or to have friends in that relationship dynamic that are supportive of the relationship.
Yeah.
Not the kind of support that's like, man, that dude sucks. You should get rid of him.
Right.
Not that.
Right.
Not that.
And on the flip side, right? Yeah.
Of
There's
course.
just like, oh, she's always nagging you. Let's go out or let's do, yeah.
Right. It's like, no, let me remind you why you're in that relationship. Let me remind you the you that I saw when you first got there so that you can change this behavior or this pattern that's coming up. And so we need the village not only to raise the children, but to raise the relationship.
Yes.
Right?
Ooh, that's beautiful.
And when that happens, we get out of the cycles of separation and into the cycles of interconnectedness, inter-sovereignty. It doesn't mean I want all my friends up in my relationship. Don't get me wrong. It's just that when if I'm revealing something about myself that seems out of alignment from who you know me to be, please tell me. Please say, hey, what's going on? Please call me in. And again, I like to say, like, we're not here to call each other out. We're here to call each other back in. Right? And so that's what we get to provide each other.
Yeah.
And again, you know, like I think that is a trope where men are talking about their wives and mutually going into the place of like, oh man, you know, whatever the story is.
Yeah.
Whatever the story is. But what does it look like to be encouraged in your marriage? What does it look like to be encouraged in your fatherhood? What does it look like to be encouraged to stop watching sports on TV and go fucking play? Get outside and play. Nothing like no dunk LeBron does will feel better than you getting out in a pickup game and hitting that same shot. Or maybe you can't dunk, but you hit the three in a pickup game. That is more fulfilling than watching someone else do it.
Yeah.
However, our culture has conditioned us to watch other people do it and you just sit down and be quiet. That time's over. Time to play. Wow. Encourage your man to get back in his body. Don't look at it like, oh, this is something where I got to get in there and be his therapist. That is never going to work in your favor. But encouraging your man to go play a game of pickup basketball because you know he loves it and every time he comes home from it, he's lit up. Do that. Or whatever the scenario is. Encourage your man to do the things he loves because that will bring the love back into your household.
Yeah.
Right? It's not about the getting in there and really figuring it out. It's about feeling. It's about feeling. So I think I finally came up with the advice.
That's gorgeous. Tell me about the event in October.
Oh, yes. So every year, Sacred Sons has an annual Convergence. Sacred Sons Convergence 8 is happening in Los Angeles, California.
What?
October 5th through 8th. We are calling in 300 men to join us in LA for 4 days of creation, connection, confrontation, and celebration. One of the things I love about the work that we're doing, because men's circles have been happening for ages, right? But we're calling in the big circle. We're calling in those ripples that really, when we see all these men coming together for the same purpose, which is to love, which is to connect, which is to become better. Not better than each other, but better than who we were yesterday, right? And so to see, last year we were in North Carolina. We called in 450 men in North Carolina.
Wow.
LA, 300 coming out. We're also holding Convergence in Europe in September. That's in Edinburgh, Scotland. So my brothers around the world, join us.
Wow.
This work is so powerful. And when we do it together, when we amplify it, the ripples that are felt just like from the photos, imagine 300 men taking that back into their homes. This is invaluable. This work is priceless when it comes down to it.
Priceless. Wow.
And so, yeah.
I'm so excited you're going to be in LA.
I'm
going to have all the people sign it.
I'll say this too, just since we're here. We've done a lot of stuff in the desert, camping, in the woods, on the Oregon coast. A lot of the things we've shown are very wild. And that's been preventative for some men who have never camped, let's say.
Yeah.
And so this Convergence in LA, every man will have a bed.
Okay.
We got a really beautiful site and location. We have some incredible speakers. I want to shout out Kevin Walton holding the cognitive pillar, Kale Kaale Kahi holding the physical pillar, Shems Hartwell is holding the relational pillar. And so these pillars of what it means to be a man, of what honest masculinity looks like, that's what we're bringing to Convergence. And we are inviting all men into this. This work is for our fam. It is for all men. And if you're someone who's been on the sidelines witnessing this from afar, now is the time. Get connected.
Mic drop. Okay. Amazing. Wow.
We're in LA, October.
Wow. LA. This is so just amazing. I mean, okay. As we come to a close of the show, I want to invite you, Adam, we do a little soul work at the end of every episode.
I need it.
No, I need you to give it.
Okay.
So
I thought you were going to do some soul work on me. I'm ready. I got some stuff to share now.
I would love if you would share for all those who are going to be really taking a moment to integrate this conversation. I like to ask everyone that listens to the episode to really give themselves the week to digest something we talked about and investigate anything that may arise from this conversation. Give yourself a chance to sink your teeth into it and really savor it. What is maybe a prompt or a thought to sink into as they go through the week?
So as you go through this week, I think what came up for me here is to invite all of us to get back into our bodies and to play, and to do that with intention, and for that to be our prayer. And knowing that as we get into our bodies, as we become embodied, that we will allow that energy and we'll allow that love that we have for that physical practice to permeate into our relationships. And so let's be in our bodies so that we can show up to all of those who need us and who need us at our best and who need us coming in with a cup full. So whatever that takes to fill up our cup in a good way, to get us back embodied and to get us in a place of honesty, that's the work for this week. That is the work. And if there's anything that's preventing you from doing that, that's where we start. And the question there would be, what is preventing you from feeling whole in your body? And let's take one step towards that. Let's take one step towards embodiment.
Thank you. I am such a deep, deep, deep admirer of your work, of the work of all of Sacred Sons, and that just profoundly powerful community that you have built. And it is such a joy to know you. So thank you so much for joining me again on this show.
Yeah. Thank you, Devi. And thank you for all the work and light and illumination that you are bringing into this world with your gifts and for being the essence of the mother that you are, because we need you too. So thank you. It's an honor for me to be here, truly. Love you.
Love you.